I'm William Pratt, and I'm a senior policy advisor at the Ontario Ministry of Infrastructure.
Hey, that's great. So how did you get there from BYU Idaho? How did you get from BYU Idaho to where you are now?
Well, after I graduated from BYU Idaho, I moved to Canada to be with my wife, Karina, who is from Toronto, Canada, and I started a master's program at the University of Toronto in public policy. During that time, I was able to do an internship that the province runs for master's programs here called the Master's Level Policy Co-op. And during that time, I was placed here at the Ontario Ministry of Infrastructure in my current team, and my boss liked me apparently and wanted me back once I'd graduated.
You are so lucky. That was like such a direct path from BYU Idaho to where you wanted to be.
Quite lucky.
That's awesome. Okay, so most of our students don't know, what does a senior policy analyst do?
So, in the government of Ontario, a senior policy advisor or senior policy analyst is a fairly just standard position in the government for providing policy advice and some level of qualitative analysis as well in the government. So, we are the front line as far as policy is concerned. We're the ones that do the math, we're the ones that do the research. If you want to know what other jurisdictions are doing, or you want to know what the best practices in a given subject area are, we're the ones who get asked and we're the ones who present that to leadership here in the government.
Do you get to pick the projects you work on or are they assigned to you?
They're more assigned. So the government of Ontario is fairly big. Toronto is, one of the largest cities in North America and Ontario has a huge population. Ontario is bigger in landmass than Texas, and its government is similarly sized. So there are a lot of different ministries with a lot of different projects. I am on one project inside the Ontario Ministry of Infrastructure that's trying to use like crown land around transit stations and how that's done and how it's prioritized and what the best way to do that is. And so I work on this one project, but there is opportunity to move around within the ministry. The ministry does like developing its talent. It likes seeing people have careers within the ministry, hopping around from different positions and between ministries in different subject areas. So I have coworkers that are here in the Ontario Ministry of Infrastructure right now who have spent time in education or in health, for example.
So you didn't grow up in Canada, right? Or did you? Yeah. So what is the transition like from moving from the States to Canada?
So I spent some time outside of the United States before I came here in a very different environment, but I can speak to sort of the difference from an educational standpoint. Is obviously, this is not the United States government. It is not a US state government, and the rules are different. I work under a different constitution and a very different legislative environment. You know, it's a parliament here. That's not something you cover when you take the legislative branch from one of the professors at BYU Idaho.
Right.
You get a little bit of it in comparative politics. Shout out to
Brother
Professor
Carter.
Carter.
He would love for us to spend more time on Canadian Parliament at BYU Idaho.
He would love it. But, it's a different government, so we work under a different set of rules. We can have, when the government of Ontario has court cases, they're settled under very different sets of doctrines than you might learn in a judicial branch class. That said, there are principles that are the same. Knowing how to do analysis that is quantitative, that is technical, that's the same everywhere.
Yeah.
Mm. Admittedly, the data sources are different, but math is math. The learning how to dig into a subject to find where the good information are, who the good thinkers are, who really knows the environment, that skill stays the same, even if your sources differ. And so these critical thinking skills that we develop, these skills that we develop to analyze what kinds of solutions are common in different jurisdictions, those remain the same. And sometimes in the government of Ontario and in Commonwealth jurisdiction policymaking, there is a frequent exercise called a jurisdictional scan where you look at nearby and similar jurisdictions to see what they're doing about something. And when you're in Canada, in a place like Toronto, it's very common to look across the border at somewhere like New York, whether the state or the city, and say, what are they doing there? And so any familiarity you have with policies and programs and economics in one jurisdiction can transfer to another, though it has to, of course, be done carefully and sensitively within a government and according to that specific government's needs.
So your undergrad, did you do public policy or political science?
I did public policy. I started in
Yeah,
poli sci, but decided I wanted to go policy.
yeah. There had to have been moments when you were in that program where you wondered, am I doing the right thing? Is this a good degree? Were there times like that for you?
There were. There was one particular summer where I freaked out a little bit about my employability, and I think this freak out was a little bit justified. Not that something went wrong because of it, but something went right because of it. That I did something a little different. Was I decided to spend a little bit of time and do a data analysis certificate online. And this was before I did your research methods course. This was before I'd really gotten really far into that degree, but I just had a little bit of a like, am I doing enough technical stuff? Or am I just learning how to say lots of words? And I did that certificate, and it started pushing me in this direction of learning how to be a quantitative and technical person. And then I added on top of that research methods and program evaluation and, just a general interest in learning how to be a person that can do both policy and technical stuff. And through all of that, I think I became really well prepared because I do very, very technical stuff in my current position. I'm in an analytics unit. I do quite a bit of quantitative stuff. Just today, I'm working with massive data sets that have huge amount of like parcel information for the province that's related to my work. And that's not something I could have done if I hadn't had exposure to serious quantitative tools and learn how to use them in a policy environment.
So, what do you think about graduate school? Students, there's different takes on it. Some people go, some people don't go. What would be your advice to students considering graduate school or not graduate school?
So, first of all, let's talk about getting into it. This quantitative focus of mine played a big role in that because I get into grad school and they tell us, hey, by the way, the number one reason that people don't make it into this program that I did is because they don't have a serious enough background in something quantitative, where they say, you got to have something that can show that you can do the work here. You got to have a semester somewhere doing research methods or calculus or statistics or something like that that tells us that you're going to succeed. Because in my graduate program, they were pushing pretty strongly for us to do R. They've switched between, I think, R and Stata over the years, but you know, you really do have to go into that and do that. And so for me, it helped me prepare a lot of those skills. I learned to do R in these general courses, and then I did an advanced course in panel data methods, which was fascinating. And I got to work with like internal Statistics Canada data. That was a really good experience. But the other thing about graduate school is, in addition to that quantitative thing, I don't think that there was any piece as big of it in my career trajectory so far as literally the internship placement it did. Is that a graduate school, it doesn't really seem to matter how technical it is if it doesn't have connections with governments or other organizations that it can place you with in internships to try to get you a leg into a government or a nonprofit or a consultancy somewhere, then it's not going to be that helpful in terms of a career trajectory.
So, that's great, by the way. I totally agree with everything you said. No surprise. If you were like to go back and give yourself advice while you were a student at BYU Idaho, are there classes you wish you would have taken or things you wish you would have paid more attention to or things you think were a waste of time?
I mean, my shift from political science to public policy is part of this. So as much as I love political theory, I felt like I needed to go in a direction that was a little bit more applied, where you could sit down and say that, yes, this is something that someone in a government does. And even within public policy, there are areas that I look back at and say, I'm not sure my module that was focused on US law was as applicable to what I'm doing today for some reason. I'm not sure I could have predicted that one though. But the big one that I look back at and gone, I was interested in this, but not interested enough to sign up for the course was the GIS courses because I ended up learning GIS on the job. I had some forays into it already with R, some geospatial applications that you can do with data in there. But we really needed some people in my team that could do stuff in ArcGIS. And that ended up being me in the end because apparently I'm good at learning software programs better than my coworkers. So not all software programs, but just like really sort of finicky and heavyweight ones like that I can get really into. And I kind of wish that I'd gone back and done that at BYU Idaho, especially because I connected with a classmate later, also at BYU Idaho, who did those courses and now does tons of GIS stuff for Madison County, is my understanding.
Yeah.
So it can really lead you somewhere.
It really surprises me because I don't know the field that well, but so many of our public admin students do GIS. It's like that's almost all they do for their job is GIS stuff.
I believe it.
Is that one of the options you could have chosen as a minor in public policy, public admin?
I don't know if it was a minor. I think they had like some like concentration areas. I can't remember what they were called. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
GIS was one of the options for that.
And you chose like public health?
What
It's
did I
okay if you don't
choose?
remember.
It's been a while now.
Yeah, it's
Because I
okay.
know law and international policy, I think were the 2 I did.
Well, that's good. That's all right.
Yes,
Yeah.
that one's a little bit more helpful.
Did you ever go to the career center or anything like that when you were at BYU Idaho?
Not extensively, no.
Yeah, I just like to ask in case it's like there sometimes people have great advice of like go to the career center, but I never know. What about like this is a question I think is important for especially in public policy, public administration. You don't have a lot of choice in what professors you're going to take because there's just like two people to choose from. But you do have a choice in how close a relationship you develop with faculty members. Do you have any advice about developing relationships with faculty members?
That's interesting. I don't have a lot of advice in that. I feel like one of the benefits of being at BYU Idaho is that it's a relatively small place. The BYU Idaho suffers, I think, a lot of disadvantages because it's remote and small, but one of the advantages was that when I was in classes, the classes are small enough that my professors know what my name is. And I can submit a paper and get written feedback from that professor on it. And I feel like when I had repeated courses with certain professors, I was able to like get consistent feedback on them that I felt like I was actually adjusting my writing, my analysis to in the direction that that professor was pushing me and that I was getting a response from it. So
Yeah, that's good.
putting good effort into that and really trying to tailor your own writing to what your professor's looking for is how that relationship was developed for me. Besides that, participate in the social stuff. If there are professors that you look up to or admire or, find to have really interesting perspectives in research, and that professor is involved with like one of the student associations or is running an event on some day or, an info for this or that, or there's a guest speaker coming and they're helping moderate it. Like, go to those things. That's when you get to see it.
Yeah. Did you need letters of recommendation for graduate school?
I did.
And what did you find those hard to get?
No, I had professors very willing to write some letters for this.
Yeah. That's great. Anything else, William, that you want to share with BYU Idaho students about the degree and what they should do?
Focus on technical stuff for me. I know a lot of people like to talk about soft skills, and soft skills are important because no one will hire you if they hate you. But having skills that are easily like explainable to be able to tell people that you can use pieces of software that other people can't, or that you can do a kind of math that other people can't, or that you're capable in a suite of geospatial programs can be something just really powerful. And it's a real good way to get a leg into things that are just otherwise, doors that are closed to you. Besides that, there are a lot of opportunities, I think, to sort of specialize into different areas. Public policy mixes with a lot of different fields, and it can mix with human resources, it can mix with accounting, it can mix with, what I'm doing with this quantitative and geospatial stuff, or it can mix with finance and budgeting. I know that's close to accounting, but they're slightly different.
They're different.
And I think there are a lot of opportunities if you get exposure in those areas that it can lead you to places that no one with just a public policy degree can do. Is that you find your place at the nexus of policy and something else. And that's what really drives you. So,
That's great advice. I just thought of another question that I know you aren't prepared for this, but I wonder what your perspective is on this. A lot of people believe that artificial intelligence is going to take away jobs like what you're doing right now. What is your perspective on that? And because I bet you don't think that. And so, how could students prepare so that artificial intelligence they're not preparing for a job that artificial intelligence will take away from them sometime soon?
right. Part of this, going back to the central theme of this interview, apparently, it's the technical stuff. So you might think that that's going to be the stuff that AI takes, but that might also be stuff that AI enhances. One of the realities is that, I think the most recent studies are saying that AI productivity gains are the biggest, or depending on who you listen to, the only place with significant AI productivity gains are in programming. But one of the realities is that it's, you can't benefit from that unless you know how to install and use Python with VS Code. And you can't benefit from it unless you can set up systems around it. So one of the things is just be a technical enough person that your job is something more than, being an inbox, be more than an email, and try to find the things that AI can't do. Again, ArcGIS is one of those things. It's badly optimized for artificial intelligence from a job security standpoint. It's sort of one of the ways I can express that to you. But the other ways are just, know what the capabilities are. I
Yeah.
think a lot of whether or not people will get laid off as a result of artificial intelligence is going to be less about whether or not it's a job that artificial intelligence can do, and more to do with whether or not they're capable of recognizing what AI can and can't do and tailoring their skill set accordingly. So there was a fascinating recent study that said that, hey, I know that all the previous studies have said that people can't tell the difference between AI and human writing, but it turns out that if you're a frequent user of AI, you can tell. You can tell what's written by AI and what is not. And if you are someone who knows when something is AI writing or not, and you know what it's good at and what it's not good at in that, then you might find that you are in a place to make decisions related to AI. I know in my job environment, in a couple of select areas, that AI, for example, is highly US centric. And there was an uptick, for example, in the UK's parliament of members standing and using phrases that are common to US Congress, not parliament. And so there are certain ways that you might realize that it doesn't make sense. This might be applicable between US states. It
Hmm.
might be that, the training still thinks that information from a year ago is still valid.
Hmm.
And so just being the sharpest in your field and knowing what AI looks like and can do, and also knowing what AI isn't, knowing that it is a statistical model and not a living, breathing consciousness, can seriously inform your pathway forward.
That's awesome. William, thank you so much.
Of course.
I'm going to
Thank you.
stop.